Every story unfolds with a beginning, a middle, and an end. In mine, the start slipped by almost unnoticed. The middle was marked by a marriage that lasted 17 years, and the end. Oh, it came like a sudden storm, quick and devastating, unraveling in just 2 short months. Even now, fragments of what I once thought was a happy union echo painfully in my mind. Life together was good, comfortable, even. No wild sparks or grand romantic gestures, but there was mutual respect and quiet appreciation. I spent my career as a diligent electrician, and while we were never swimming in riches, money wasn't something we worried about. But when our eldest son set his sights on college, the numbers didn't quite add up. To make ends meet, I started taking on business trips, usually a couple of days at a time. And then, one day, everything shifted. I came home early from one of these trips, carrying bags of sea buckthorn, a small treat for my wife. The house was quiet. She was in the shower. Thinking I'd surprise her, I headed to the bedroom to unpack. That's when I noticed the computer screen glowing faintly in the dim room. Harmless curiosity made me glance, but what I saw sent a chill down my spine. In an instant, memories came flooding back. The night we first met. She was walking alone on a dimly lit street, her slim figure illuminated by the glow of streetlights. I pulled over in my clunky station wagon and offered her a ride. She didn't speak, didn't smile, but slid into the car without hesitation. Her vacant gaze lingered in my mind long after. Later, she told me I had been her saving grace that night, helping her escape the wreckage of a past relationship. I never sought to own her heart, but somehow life carried us forward. Before long, we were standing outside the registry office, her eyes sparkling with joy as we pledged our lives to each other. And now I was staring at messages, flirty, ambiguous exchanges between her and someone who seemed to be her first love. Worse still, she was responding, clearly enjoying the attention. My heart sank. I was startled by the sound of her footsteps. Turning, I saw Emma casually scrolling through my emails. She laughed softly. "Oh, it's nothing." He tried to flirt, so I played along to throw him off, she said, brushing it off as though it were trivial. Her explanation seemed plausible enough, and I wanted to believe her. But a quiet voice inside me refused to be silenced. As the days passed, I couldn't shake my unease. The messages didn't stop, and then I discovered they had actually met. Needing answers, I did something I'd never done before. I followed her. My suspicions were confirmed. The man from the messages was real, and their connection wasn't harmless. My heart broke a little more when I found his pictures online. There was something hauntingly familiar about him, a resemblance I couldn't ignore. My mind spun, my breath caught. It was as if I were staring at my eldest son's reflection. I had to know the truth. Trembling, I went through the agonizing process of a paternity test. I'll never forget the moment I read the results. My hand shook so violently that I almost dropped the paper. The confirmation shattered me. The life I thought I'd built was a lie. Overwhelmed, I turned to my mother for solace and poured out everything. "Can you even imagine?" I asked, my voice raw. She was with him, even after we married. His son is his, not mine. My mother's expression tightened, guilt shadowing her face. "She didn't betray you, not back then," she murmured. Her words only deepened the confusion, unraveling a thread I hadn't even realized existed. And from there, things only spiraled further into chaos. Betrayal. That's the only word for it. But from my mother. Of all people, I never saw it coming. Turns out, Emma's story was even more complicated than I thought. She hadn't just gone through a breakup with her boyfriend. She'd had an abortion too. And then I entered the picture. My mother and her best friend, who's now my mother-in-law, schemed to marry us off, dragging me into their plan. Looking back, it's like they crafted this whole narrative for me to believe. My mother had always wanted grandchildren, and I guess she thought this was the way to make it happen. She tried to justify it later. "Son, honestly, I thought she'd handle it herself. Maybe she'd have a miscarriage. But being a father isn't just about biology. It's about raising a child. Her words knocked the wind out of me. My own mother. She knew everything. The abortion, Emma's past, the lies, and yet I was the fool, blind to it all. I swallowed the tale of a premature pregnancy and believed everyone around me loved and respected me. But it was all smoke and mirrors. The rage came out of nowhere, like a dam breaking. I screamed, cursed, lashed out at everyone who'd betrayed me. Even my eldest son tried to defend his mother, but I couldn't hear it. I dismissed him harshly, told him I didn't want to acknowledge him. Those words haunt me now. In my fury, I punished him too, though he'd done nothing wrong. At the time, I couldn't see it. All I knew was the suffocating weight of deception. I left, packed my bags, and moved in with my cousin, the only person who didn't try to make excuses or urge me to forgive. Everyone else kept saying, "Think of the years you spent together." But how could I? Forgiving Emma's past was one thing, but seeing her with her first love and Luke, the boy I'd raised as my own, was too much. The decision to file for divorce and leave town felt inevitable. I couldn't risk running into them, couldn't stomach the thought of staying in the same space where all this had happened. When Emma found out about the divorce, she lost it. She stopped taking my calls, then started calling incessantly, crying and dredging up memories of the good times. At first, her tone was playful, like she thought she could charm me into forgetting. But soon, the sweetness curdled into bitterness. She started yelling, hurling accusations. I cut back on child support out of sheer frustration, but I still made sure to cover the kids' school fees, buy their clothes, and take care of their needs. I even tried to plan a trip to the sea with the kids, but things didn't go smoothly. The younger ones couldn't wrap their heads around why I'd cut ties with Luke or stopped supporting him financially. I tried to explain, but how do you make sense of something like this to a child? To them, I was the one abandoning a brother they adored. Work became my escape. I threw myself into it, and when that wasn't enough, I distracted myself with meaningless flings. But the distance between me and the kids only grew. Eventually, guilt caught up with me, and I set up accounts for all of them, even Luke, that I regularly fund. It's my way of making amends, though I know it won't fix everything. I don't expect things to go back to how they were, but I still want to be part of their lives, even if only from the sidelines. Meeting Luke later was bittersweet. He seemed to understand, or at least he didn't blame me outright. But I could feel the tension, the unspoken resentment hanging in the air. I told him I'd always be there for him, that he could rely on me no matter what. And I meant it. No matter what's happened, I'll never abandon him, or any of them. Life has a way of forcing you to pick up the pieces, even when they don't fit the way they used to. I'm trying, in my own imperfect way, to make things right. It's not enough, but it's all I have.